Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Match+Book series on the EBPL podcast. My name is Paul. I'm the Adult Services Librarian here. I answer questions on the Match+Book form on our website, where you could send in questions for personalized reading recommendations. What I do is I try to take those questions, ones I find interesting that I find have some meat on the bone, and maybe we could go into it a little bit more in depth and bring these to the podcast and discuss them here. I had a question from somebody recently asking for spring reads. So I took that to mean anything that feels like a rebirth, like we're emerging from the cocoon of winter, that kind of thing, just like we're getting back in the swing of things after a little bit of a hibernation. So in all the different connotations that could possibly be understood, I tried to go in a few different directions and have books that really evoke that kind of feeling and that sentiment. The first one I found was The Backyard Bird Chronicles by Amy Tan. Now, Amy Tan, you might know as the author of The Joy Luck Club. She's been writing quite a long time, a number of best-selling books, wonderful author, mainly writes fiction, so this one was a little bit different. And I think it totally worked for her style, where it's very laid back, and it just happens to be an account of birds she sees in her backyard. She did sketches of them and daily entries of what she saw, the patterns she noticed over time, what that evoked to her, seeing these birds in this environment, and really just trying to capture a state of solitude in a way. She admits to spending too much time online over the past 10 years or so. And as a way of combating any negativity, she wanted to convey a sense of solitude through her work. And so rather than doing something that was maybe socially or politically charged, she thought it would be good to do something maybe everybody could agree on, and that's seeing a beautiful bird in one's backyard. Hard to find that divisive, so that was the route she went. And I commend her for it, honestly, because it's a very peaceful work, very subdued. And I would say it prompts the same feeling as like hearing a nice dribbling fountain. It just is very soft and flowing and really nice. And it's interesting to see the variety of birds that are in her backyard, but then it makes you think maybe that is around me too. Maybe this is everywhere, and then maybe I'm just not noticing, or maybe I'm just not going to the right places, not seeing things. So it does propel one to want to learn more about birding in a way, about this field, about understanding nature. And so she started with such a simple topic and turned it into something about quietude and a study of nature, and also finding oneself back in nature. So it's really keen observations that are educational, but it's entertaining as well. And like I said, it's great to see what an artist she is. I've known about her work for a long time, but I had no idea she had this capability. It makes the case for really plugging away at something slowly over time and not trying to get all the answers or mastering something right away, where she kind of just allows the patterns to develop when she sees the birds, what time of year or time of day, why she might be seeing that, and to really let that develop over time. I think that's really a great lesson in approaching any project, any work of art, any craft, anything like that, is to set yourself free from the expectations and slowly but surely over time really come to grips with it and improve in these subtle ways each and every day. So if you are looking to get back in tune with nature, if you are looking to become more of a birder, bird watcher, or anything like that, this is definitely a book to get you on that path. The next book I wanted to discuss is Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang. This is a recent dystopian sci-fi book about a young chef who, when a fog spreads over the earth and food crops erode and the land becomes desolate, she camps with her daughter to this biosphere that is kind of incubated from the rest of the world. And she's still able to be a chef for the people living there, despite all the horrors going on for the people who are not lucky enough to make it into that area. So there's like a class element to that as well, but she finds herself still having to complete her duties as a chef within an environment that is obviously very different from how she started her occupation. In that way, there's definitely the theme of climate change and how to protect the environment, and how if we don't, there's definitely a warning in there of all of the atrocities, that this ricochet effect of how it will affect humanity. And so in that way, it's perfect for the rejuvenation of spring, because all the greenery that we're seeing stands in contrast to what we see in the book and all of this erosion and desolation. So in that way, it is a good reminder of the potential if we do not protect the planet in any way. The through line of her vocation as a chef provides an interesting perspective for the novel as well, where we see her still wanting to practice and to make all of these lush, extravagant meals for people, because that is what feels right to her. But at the same time, there is such a limitation on this vegetation animals. So there was such a warning in that way as well. It's like, protect these things or we won't have them for generations to come. So the book relies heavily on the sensory perspective of the chef protagonist as well. So we see what she's seeing, we see what is available in this post-apocalyptic state, what it's like in this controlled environment, all those things. And so in that way, it's a very full book, very easily to imagine as the reader. And so in that way, I didn't have this as one of my recommendations off the top of my head, but maybe the poetry of like a Mary Oliver, who has all of these wonderful poems about natural environment, which are filled with vivid imagery. It's really scaled down, unadorned language that makes you as a reader really present in the moment when you're reading it, and you could almost feel what the narrator is feeling on their own. And so that way, it brings you right into the words on the page. I would compare it to Mary Oliver's works. Again, those would be great for reading in spring as well, because they have such a focus on how essential nature is to our way of being, to providing us with nuances of life, and to providing us with an identity as well in our relation to it. Our last book is called Entangled Life: How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. This book is definitely a bit off-kilter from the last two. I would say it's a nonfiction book about fungi, maybe something we overlook in our daily life, but it is like an ode to this strange life form that provides us with so much. Neither plant nor an animal, it's found everywhere on Earth. It's microscopic, but it also could be an extremely large organism. They live for millennia, can weigh thousands of tons. It's really like something I would have never considered reading, but once you sink your teeth into it, you really see that it's responsible for so much good in the planet, and it's also everywhere in a way we don't really pay attention to. There's such a wondrous capacity to it, where fungi doesn't exactly have a brain, much in the way like a jellyfish doesn't, and yet stretches what we traditionally think of as like an intelligent creature. It can manipulate animal behavior. It gives us bread, alcohol, life-saving medicines. There's psychedelic properties, which have influenced societies for thousands of years back, and has medicinal properties as well, which are still being researched and understood. And Sheldrake does a great job of showing how it's used in research currently, and how so much is focused on that, and how there's so much we still don't know in those areas, still trying to learn what these do. It could digest plastics, and it connects plants through underground networks, its own webs and tendrils. So it is this great journey through a hidden kingdom of life that we don't generally understand, but rely on for our everyday life. And so in that way, I think Sheldrake provides us with not only an understanding, but a very foundational appreciation for fungi in a way that I gotta be honest, I never thought I would have had. In that way, it almost felt like it connected with me the way that like a Bill Nye would as a public scientist, where he does such an excellent job of explaining these difficult scientific issues in language that's easy to understand and digest. And that way, I'm very appreciative because that's not always the easiest thing to do from a scientific perspective. And so when somebody can convey that so clearly, I greatly appreciate them being able to write in such a way that is clear and precise. So definitely check out any of those books. I greatly recommend all three of them. Yeah, so thanks. Wonderful question. Great for, emerging from winter, getting back into seeing the sunlight again. So that's it for us today. The EBPL podcast can be found at ebpl.org/podcast. Thank you to Melissa Hosick for editing this episode, and thank you all for listening.